Hey everybody, it's Jason with Davis Shopworks here. I'm going to talk about working on the bottom of the boat. You'll have to pardon me, I'm pretty sick. I've been pretty sick since Monday. Today is Friday, February 24th. Like a double ear infection, so it's real hard for me to hear. And sinus is real bad. Woke up this morning, my eyes were matted shut, and it just hadn't been a very good week. I took the week off, and I've been medicating like crazy, try to get better to salvage a couple of the days. And this ain't happening. So, pardon me in this video, but I thought this would probably be a good one to do because it's more informative. There's not a whole lot to show or really do. And so the topic today is with the CP19 and the bottom work that I did. So whenever I got this boat, the bottom was pretty rough shape. It had been sanded and had a bottom paint applied to it. Directly to a gel coat. That's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. If the other video isn't up yet concerning the top sides, or if you haven't watched it, this might be repeat information for those that watch that video, depending on where that video falls into things. So I've been trying to edit a lot of footage from prior to me getting sick. I've had some time while I was sick, laying around in bed to edit footage and get it put up. But at any rate, whenever the boat came to me and it had that gel coat and then has the bottom paint put on it, that's kind of a normal thing to do. Manufacturers will tell you, at least they used to, don't scratch our bottoms. The bottoms of their boats, they don't want you to scratch them up and apply the paint because they say that voids warranty. And so here's why. Here's the thought premise behind it. Gel coat, and like I kind of stated in that other video, is gel coat is harder than the fiberglass, so the impact resistance of it is pretty low actually in comparison. Fiberglass can take kind of a hit, whereas gel coat is a harder substance, so it takes damage whenever it takes a hit. What the manufacturer's saying is hey, our gel coat's solid through, so we can guarantee that bottom. By the time you start seeing issues, though, it's already kind of too late. You're out of their warranties and this and that, unless you get into blistering from the inside. So that would be like water in a bilge or things like that trying to travel out. So fiberglass is like a bunch of straws. I'm going to kind of dumb this down as much as I can. So I'm sure that there's somebody out there could pick my videos apart, but I've got a tried and true method, so I'm not that worried about it. But anyway, so it's like a bunch of straws all interlaced, and the filler around it, which is either polyester resin or my favorite, which is epoxy resin, basically keeps those fibers together and allows that to be its strength, basically. So I'm reminded of a time of whenever I went to West Systems school. We were up there and I had a pine block. The objective was to take the block and they pull it apart at the grains. And again, pardon me, I'm super sick. Anyway, they take the grains and they put a pole on it and pull it apart. And I believe the pole to pull the grains apart of a 2x4 at that time was like 250 pounds or 280 pounds. There was kind of a range in there. So anyway, the goal was to take a block. They'd give you the block and they'd say, okay, here's the products. You do what you want and let's see whose is the strongest. And there were blocks there that, and I believe even my own block was pushing over 5,000 pounds. So epoxy in itself, depending on how it's used and impregnated into the substrate or whatever it's going into, can be pretty strong. So one of the things that people would do is they'd buy these new boats. Back whenever new boat buying was a big deal, was an actual thing because a lot of folks own boats. We would suggest that we sand the bottom and epoxy coat it and then put the bottom paint on. Now, whether people would take us up on that or not is up to them. I mean, they just paid however much for a boat and this and that, and manufacturer says this, and we're telling them, hey, this is what we've seen, so you pick. It'd probably be a 50-50. I would assume that people would take us up and folks wouldn't. Whenever you get an old boat, you have to take into consideration several factors there. What water was it used in? How well did the owner take care of the inside for blisters that come from the inside out? And how good is the gel coat on the outside? And what kind of blistering or damages are there? Whenever you damage gel coat, you offer an intrusion of water point, basically. And the boat's trying to stay afloat, and the water's trying to push in. And that's just the normal of a boat. So whenever you put damage into a bunch of little straw-like substrate, it's going to start sucking some water up, probably. And you could get traveling blisters. You could get blisters from poor molding process. And there's all kinds of different ways that these problems can occur. We used to call them injuries. So depending on how it injured the substrate or what happened there, could always negated what you had to do to fix the problem. So aside from a lot of the issues, I'll just kind of go with blistering, whether it's dry glass, which would be a pocket that just didn't get any absorption of the resin mixture, and finally walked itself out, or it's like water intrusion, damage, scarring, whatever, to the gel coat. One of the fixes that is primary in the industry is to take and grind that blemish out and repair it accordingly. There are several different ways to fix these things, mainly using epoxy resins. So the industry uses epoxy resins. Now you'll find on my channel, I'm going to highly suggest West System. They don't do anything for me anymore. I've had my heyday with West System. I love West System. Everybody knows I know the product line like crazy. I've been to their school. I've flown out to, I think it was Detroit, Michigan, I believe. You have to check that out. It's been a long time. But I even worked with the guys, talked to them on the phone. I was like, man, these guys were like my instructors for, I think it's like a week course or something, a couple days, whatever it was. But I even got to try, I think it was G-Flex for the first time. It was one of those products, I believe it was G-Flex. Anyway, we fixed them, one of the coworkers' rubber boots with that stuff, and they lasted like, it was a long time, way more than those rubber boots should have lasted. But the products that you use to do those repairs, if you use a quality product and you learn how to use it right, it's going to last a long time. Once you get those repairs done, to get us more into a bottom coating process for this video, is I have some repairs I'd like to talk about and then maybe fix those. Hopefully I could show that. This thing does need a couple repairs where I skinned her up on the bottom of the keel. Is that gel coat may or may not be in good shape. Whatever you pick up, old boat, some new boats. So my suggestion is this. This was a tried and true process of working on the bottom of a boat. So what we would do is we would go through and we would sand that boat with 80 grit, depending on what I wanted done, I might even go as far as like a 40 or a 60. Get a really strong bite. The reason is I don't care about what's there anymore. So depending on my assessment of the bottom, I would be pretty aggressive. The reason is your first initial contact with this substrate is going to be aggression, right? Like it's all mechanical. There's no chemical bonds happening here. You're not trying to dechemicalize the current bottom in order to chemically bond to it. You're going for basically brute force. And so a 40 grit is pretty abrasive. 60 grit is kind of our medium run, and then an 80 grit run, if you just run it with 80, that's okay too. But if you got serious kind of shit that you got to deal with, then a 40 grit will make faster pace of this stuff. The other thing is you have to look at what kind of equipment that you're using. A fine sander, F-E-I-N, sander head is heavy. And young men should be able to run with these things, but the vibration gets you, the weight of it gets you, the outstretching gets you. So if you're running a DA sander and you run 40 grit, you move a little bit quicker, you know, and you're not putting quite a 40 grit scratch in there. But the deal is you want the bind of whatever you're going to put on there to grab it. And so that's what the scratch is for. So whatever you choose as far as that grit, your next deal is product. So I highly recommend still to this day Interlux 2000. They still sell it. You can pick it up all over the place. It is excellent stuff. I've never had any issues with Interlux 2000 unless it was mixed incorrectly or played with wrong, so to speak. As long as you play within the variables of that stuff, you're going to do and have a great job. It's a microplate technology, so it lays plates on top of each other. And once you get the first coat on there, it chemically binds and has so much time. Check the manufacturer's stuff on the numbers. I'm not going to list that because they might have changed them. So follow that product info. Pettit does have one as well. That's the two main players I know of off the top of my head. So with that being said, why were we so successful in our bottom jobs? Well, I found that despite having a vacuum sander, it's not picking up all the dust. And so we would wash the bottom with water, and whenever we did a hose wash and maybe scrub, people weren't real good at scrubbing sometimes, so you just don't get everything. We can see that in the way we scrub our houses or whatever else, but we needed the dust gone. And so I kept doing these tests on this one boat. And I told the guy, I said, why don't you take a pressure washer out there and just hit it as if you were washing off the bottom of a boat, washing the algae off. And hit it kind of hard. And so that's what he did. He went out there and we hit it hard, and I was not able to get any dust off that boat. And we started at the top and went down to the bottom to get all the dust off, even washed the top sides down as he went. Pardon me. Now, the key to this is most of that dust is gone. So what little bit of dust is left, I mean, you could chemically wash it down with some acetone or xylene. Xylene evaporates slower than acetone. Otherwise, I think they're pretty well the same. At least that's what I've always been led to believe. And have said that for years. But at any rate, you can still chemically wash it if you're that worried about it. But I think, if I remember right, there was times I don't think we even did that as long as we knew that the job was solid and there was no more dust on there. What you have to think is any paint job that you do, whether it's on your house or it's your boat or a vehicle or anything, you're layering stuff on top of things is only as good as that first initial bind. And so if you're laying paint on top of paint on top of paint on top of paint, and all that paint, whenever it gets on there, it's flattened out and then it tightens down and locks itself in. It's all locking in on that beginning. And so that tension that everything is under is where then you start to see other issues. So as a side step out for a minute, why do we see cracking and different things in paint? Is it thickness? Is it, the tension? Is it film tension, film strength? What's going on here? We have to take that at a case-by-case basis, because we have to see what's actually happening and then really try to examine that and try to deduce what's going on so we can fix the original problem, which sometimes is stripping all the paint off and starting from scratch. This water washdown process is not really to be taking place from trying to collect the dust. You want to try to collect that dust as much as you can. Some of these paints that you remove, if you remove paints, they've got a high copper loadout, which is what pettit paints do, which is why they perform better in some instances. And so you don't want to inhale that stuff. You don't want to get it on your skin and all these other things. You want to collect as much as possible. Now, the rest of it that you rinse off, that you're pressure washing off, is going to be very minimal. You're not washing the whole thing off. So anyway, so you get it washed off. We let it dry for a few days. Typically, it'd sit in a shop, and we let it dry for a few days. And then if we felt like it, we would wipe it down. If not much occurred in the shop, then probably no need to, and we could start 2000. Now, a high quality tape on this edge is key to 2000 because of the catalyst. It's a two-part epoxy microplate finish, and a catalyst can eat, different glues and things like this. So you want a good high quality tape. And then you could tape over top of that with some other stuff, because you're not going to really run up that far. You want to get a good push down wherever you tape. And whenever you sand up, if you do sand up to it, you can sand up to that. You got to put several coats of 2000 on. Again, they're going to chemically bind to one another. Have your bottom paint ready, because you can chemically bond the bottom paint to the 2000. With that being said, you get into bottom paints. Now, the 2000 requires so many coats, and I used to put some extra coats in high wear areas, as commonly known for this. This isn't anything I didn't hide. I say, here I'm going to do so many coats. If you end up doing things like that, if that's your choice, I want you to know then that you have to kind of calculate your coats out. So you're going to put that coat so that you still fall within the window to coat all the rest of the stuff, to get one giant coat done, right? The whole bottom coated, so that you can meet that time. So say at the end, and you're getting close to doing your bottom paint, you get your other ends coated, the extra couple coats throughout the process, right? Lay this out on a piece of paper. This is your plan. You're only going to coat these parts, or you're going to come back and coat them again, a couple hours later with whatever's left. But whenever you do your final coat, you need to kind of start and work around the boat like a clock, whichever way you want to go. But that's how you're going to start your bottom paint. And you want to make sure that you have good coverage. Now, the microplate finish is a little rough. I'm not that worried about that. I don't race boats. And I did paint race boats and stuff like this, and we would wet sand some if that's what was required of us by the customer. But whenever you do that, you got to meet a requirement too in order to get that bottom paint on there. It needs a certain scratch to mechanically bind. But whatever bottom paint that you choose, you're going to try to chemically bond that to the 2000. You want to make sure that you meet those specifications, that you're in that window of time, factoring in humidity and temperature. And they have tables for that. This isn't, I probably make it sound harder maybe than what it is. And maybe I'm not. Maybe this is To some folks, this might be really easy to do, and it is. It's more user-friendly. That 2000 product is way more user-friendly. It's the most user-friendly product on the market at the time a few years back. So I'm sure it is probably still that way. But I digress. The bottom paint that you choose needs to be calculated to wherever you're mainly planning on sailing. Now, I've had some decision to make with this boat here recently. It's not been out of the shop, I think, in 2 years. Sadly, she's been resting in here with a work list that's kind of lengthy. And I'll be getting onto those here pretty soon and putting videos up of that. But I've been looking at like an epoxy-based bottom coat. I've also been looking at a couple of paints I remember that were more for trailer sailors, on and off. They would stand up to the roughness, but my pressure washing off or the algae growth isn't going to be as nice to come off. I'm not sure that I'm so worried about that. Now, whatever paint that you choose, you need to also take care of that paint. So say it's a microablative, and like Micron CSC used to be. I don't know if Interlux still sells that or not, but it was a microablative paint, and it would wash off. That was the way that it worked. Whenever algae grows on those surfaces, as it dries, if you let it dry, it shrinks like paint. And it would grab and pull on the paint and put tension on it. And you'd have more come off. That's why it's better to wash them as they came out of the water than to set it on the lot for 3 weeks and then try to wash it off. It's already dried, put tension on the paint, and now it's going to have more paint come off. We saw that happen. Some folks didn't listen and, understand they don't want to pay to have their boat sprayed off, saving money. I get it. But at any rate, those are decisions that you face. So to kind of recap this video to close this out is you have to assess the damage on the bottom of the boat. If you assess the damage and you decide that 2000, say, is the product line, then now you have to figure out how you're going to remedy your injuries, how much product you're going to need, get the product, and then when you're going to actually do it. Humidity and temperature are big factors. Knowing what bottom paint you want to use at the end will help you too with your finish work. Because no joke, whenever I go to put bottom paint on this next, I'm going to sand this one with, I think, 80 grit, as long as the manufacturer's stuff hasn't changed. I'll probably use 80 grit on my DA or use my fine. I've got a fine sander. And I'm going to sand the bottom with 80 grit. And I'm going to do a bunch of touch-up work with the 2000 and do a full coat. At the very least, a full coat, maybe 2 coats. Then I'm going to bottom paint it. And that's all that I have to do. I have no blistering I've seen or anything after use, and I've watched for that stuff. But once you protect that bottom and you seal it off from the outside, then your other fight's the inside of the boat, making sure that you keep it dry the best that you can. Take care of these things, and these things take care of you. That's what I was always taught about my tools. And I've always taken care of my tools, and I've got tools. If you've seen my short, I think I did a short on my 2006 or 2008 grinder. I take care of them, and that's why I have things a long time. So pressure washing will help to get the water off, and giving it a few days helps that dry out. I'm not saying that you need to pressure wash injuries. You might just need to chemically wipe them and give them a few days to dry. Make sure everything is dried out before you do repairs or coverings and all that. But you just want to make sure that hull is dry. I've got a dehumidifier in my shop, so it keeps things pretty dry. That was mainly for the tools, because I noticed like my table saw, the top would start to rust and stuff like this, and I don't want no pitting. I was even using bow shield and some other things. So that's my that's kind of my bottom jobs in a nutshell video here. I hope that this video helps somebody, and I wish I had a little bit more information that was more up to date as far as product lines and stuff. But you know, some folks are Pettit fanboys, some folks are Interlux fanboys. Some people are going to think I'm an Interlux fanboy. I will tell you, in all honesty, I'm a huge West System fanboy. I'm not going to deny that one. I am an Interlux 2000 fanboy because I had great luck with it. And it's just a fantastic product. And I seen they still sell it. I was excited because I know I got to work on my own. So I hope that this information was helpful. If it was, please give me a like. Subscribe. I'll have other stuff. I plan on doing a lot of other things with the boat. I've got some big projects that I've been doing to this, and stuff that there's some controversy over doing, things like that. I'll just allude to that. But at any rate, I'm going to end this one here. I appreciate you all for bearing with me. It's got me out of the house, got me to do something today. So man, I am sore. This thing's kicking my butt. But we'll see. I'd like to do one on the top deck today if I can. And I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you tuning into the channel, checking my channel out, seeing what I got going on. Hopefully I could get back to work soon and get some more things knocked out. Anyway, thanks. Like, subscribe. And above all else, have a wonderful day. Oh my. Whew.